You're listening to the Packernet Podcast Network.
What's going on, U.S. Cellular customers? I've got good news, so don't hit skip, at least not yet. I'm talking about their special customer event, Us Days. What is Us Days? It means exclusive offers just for their customers, just to say thanks, like $1,200 off any phone, plus $300 off any tablet. No, I didn't just misread that. They must really like you. Us Days at U.S. Cellular, exclusive offers just for you, just to say thank you. Right now, U.S. Cellular customers get $1,200 off any phone, plus $300 off any tablet. Terms apply.
This episode is brought to you by Shopify. Do you have a point of sale system you can trust, or is it a real POS? You need Shopify for retail. From accepting payments to managing inventory, Shopify POS has everything you need to sell in person. Go to shopify.com/system, all lowercase, to take your retail business to the next level today. That's shopify.com/system.
Hi, everybody. How you doing? All right, so this may look familiar to you. Here he goes with the stupid contracts again. That's right. I'm very sorry. We're doing this again because it's stuck in my brain and I can't get it out. Sometimes I just get stuck on stuff. We got the Jordan Love contract coming up eventually, hopefully. I'm hoping by the time training camp starts-ish. And I want to make sure that, because it's something that I hadn't really super thought through, right? I knew... Let's back up for context. I knew that looking at, for example, average salary is not the best way to look at a contract, right? And I promise you this is new stuff, not the same old thing, so please don't click off and say, I heard him say this already. So $55 million per year is not necessarily the best way to look at it, because then we look at Trevor Lawrence and we say he got the Joe Burrow contract, and no, he didn't. Because $55 million a year in 2024 money compared to 2023 is like 64, right? Because the salary cap goes up. So anyways, went through this whole thing. If you didn't see that video or hear that podcast or whatever, you can go back and find it. It wasn't that long ago. Within the last week, I would say I did that whole thing. And so what I said was percentage of cap is the better way to look at it, because it adjusts for the time period. And I mentioned offhand, like, look, there's a ton of other variables I haven't really thought through how to better come up with something, but this is a much better way to look at it, and it is. And so you can see the massive gap between Joe Burrow, for example, and Trevor Lawrence, and the fact that Dak and Deshaun and Kyler and Hurts and Mahomes and Lamar and Herbert. It's funny how some guys, it's like you use their first name, and some guys it's their last name. Like, you wouldn't say Jackson. Like, who the heck is it? Like Lamar? And then you wouldn't say Patrick, because that sounds stupid. Like, it's Mahomes. Mahomes and Lamar and Herbert and Allen and Burrow. There's a huge gap in between them, because the fact of the matter is 2024 money and 2023 money are very, very different. So anyways, I went through that whole thing, and I this is part of the reason why there wasn't a podcast today, yesterday, whatever, on Sunday, because I just got it stuck in my head, and I started to like visualize it, and I literally had paint out. Let me just show you a little visual, not that this is necessary, but I'm sitting here, and I'm just trying to draw what's in my head, and I'm like, okay, so we got $55 million a year, and that's flat. And then you got the salary cap that goes like this. And then I forget what else I was. And then I was thinking about, like, okay, so the actual cap hit compared to the average per year lags, right? Because you're not going to pay him this, you're going to pay it. So it kind of runs like this. And then if you look at the year, it kind of goes like this. And like, I couldn't quite flesh it out. And then I kind of got it. And again, we're just taking a step forward. This is not, I'm sure you get some cap people or some math people in here, and they're like, well, technically. And it's like, yeah, dude, I get it. We can do better. But I came up with something to take us a step further. And the Packers cap specialist, I'm completely blanking on his name right now. Anyways, Ken Griffey Jr.? I can't remember. Anyways, one of the things he mentioned is, if you were to give, for example, Jordan Love $55 million this year, it would not even be the same as Trevor Lawrence. You say, well, yes, it is, because it's 2024 and 55, and those are the two variables, and they line up, right? Obviously, you got guarantees and all that stuff. But there's also a big variable here, and that is how many years. And really, this is not correct. It's not 5. Look at this. 2024 to 2030, is that 5 years? No, that's 7 years. Why? Because he already had years on his contract. That's why. It was an extension. So the contract, the extension length is 5 years, but that doesn't include the 2 years on it. So if you give Jordan a 5-year contract or 5-year extension compared to Trevor, you're talking about a 7-year compared to, I think, a 6-year, because Jordan has 1 year left. So that factors in as well. And so I thought, okay, so how do we do this now? How do we add all these things together? And here's what I came up with. Percentage of the cap is still important. The problem is, when we see 55 million, we think 55 million today in today's money. So we think, what if we had 55 million, boom, that just smacked our cap today? It would be catastrophic. And that's why we just go into this tailspin of like, oh, I can't even imagine. It would be so horrible. But that's not what happens. We know that we stagger it. And so the question becomes, if you look at the average, 55, and then you take what is the, trying to think how to verbalize this here. If you go from the start date, so 2023, and you have to know what the salary caps were in these years, 2023, 2024, and I also projected out 2025, 6, 7. I don't know these numbers, but I use past numbers to project into the future. The point is, though, what is 55 million as a percentage of the cap today? It's 24.47. That's a lot. What is it going to be in, or what is it in 2024? It's not 24.47. It is, as we know, where is it? Trevor Lawrence, it's 21.53. What is it going to be next year, and the year after that, and the year after that, and the year after that? And then what you do very simply is you average them out. Because what I want to know is, what is going to be the average cap hit? Because I want to know the actual pain point. Because when you average those years out, what you get is what you're probably going to have as a cap hit each one of those years. We're just spreading it out over those years. Because again, we're not getting 24.47. That's nonsense. We're also not going to be on the low end of the spectrum if you took 55 million and applied it to the final year. That would be too low. But if you average it, then we get a better idea of what you're getting each one of those years, and we can really get what this really is a contract pain index. How much is this contract going to hurt us? Because remember, what I said about this is I want to know how much pain we're willing to give you, because that's how much value we put in you. Right? If I'm willing to give you $10 on my wallet compared to $100, it makes a big difference, or $1,000, because it has a big pain point on how much money I have for myself. And it's the same for this, how much money I'm going to have for everybody else. It shows how much I value you. So it's the exact same thing. We're just upgrading it to factor in all the years. So I came up with this little guy here. So let's use Trevor Lawrence for the sake of being a little bit easier. So I'm going to use practical guarantees. That's the other thing. I'm not really going to use the 55. That's not the best number either. So one of the other things I did, that's so instead of 275 over 5 years, I just said how much is practically guaranteed over the entirety of the 7 years. And that's 200 million for Trevor Lawrence. So it's 200 million over 7 years. So I created this little guy. So in millions, we got 200. We've got 7 years, and the year started was 2024, right? So here you go. Here is the breakdown. This is the average percentage of cap, 8.94%. And then you can see the full breakdown in the tables here. 2024 is this, and this, and this, and this, and this, and this, and this. So these are, and again, it's not 55 million. We're looking at the total guarantees, which is 200, and that's over 7 years. So this is kind of what you would expect year to year. So in this is how much I would expect the cap to hit us this year and next year and next year, and you just apply that to whatever the salary cap is. So if the salary cap is 255.4 million, you multiply it by 8.94. It should give you a general idea of how much we're going to get hit each year. if you just did it perfectly evenly. But it doesn't matter if you do or don't. You can, whatever. So now we have an era-adjusted metric, because I can go back to Brett Favre and do this. Actually, let me see if I can. I don't remember if I put this into the code or not. I know I used to have it where it went all the way back, but let's just try it. When did he sign? Like 1997? And it was, let's say 50, I don't know, and then a 5-year contract or something. I just want to see if it works. It's not working, so I must not have. I'll fix it so that it works. But it's era adjusted, so it doesn't matter what year you do. And it gives you a pain point to show you how much as a percentage of the cap are we probably going to be giving to this quarterback every single year. Okay. So then I went through and I did all the quarterbacks. So as you can see, and so now you can actually readjust how much these things are costing. But you've got years, and this is not years of the contract. This is this minus this, which is 5 years, or in the case of Joe Burrow, 7, Justin Herbert, 7. The practical guarantees, the average percent of the cap, and then what I did here is relative cap hit. So this is a cool metric too, because as I said before, if you look at 55 million, we think 55 million smack in our cap in 2024 and how much that would suck. And that's why it's so shocking. But in reality, that's not what the cap hit is going to be. So we think in today's dollars. So, for example, Joe Burrow, his contract in today's dollars would be a $28.4 million cap hit. Right? That's about what you're expecting. And I don't know what his cap hit is this year. But that's about how much it's hitting the cap. If you look at Aaron Rodgers, it's about 26. Matt Stafford, 27. Trevor Lawrence is 22. Again, a much lower contract. Mahomes, see, and this is the other thing. You say Mahomes, well, he had a massive contract. It was over 12 years. Did you know Mahomes still has the furthest out contract? Trevor Lawrence just signed his contract. Trevor Lawrence's contract starts 1 year sooner than Pat Mahomes' deal. And you could say that that's a flaw in the system if you want. The only real flaw is that it doesn't take into account risk. The reality is, this is how much you're kind of expecting the cap hit to be. Now, he's probably going to get multiple contracts throughout that because they're going to keep readjusting it because they have to, because it's actually a really low number. The fact of the matter is, and you can already kind of see it. If you look at, I don't know what is his average salary here. Let's go to averages. Where is Pat Mahomes? So he's at $45 million. Now, there was a time when that was a shocking amount of money, but we've blown past that, and we're what, 4 years, 5 years into this 12-year contract or whatever it's going to be to 2031. Can you imagine how much $45 million is going to be in 10 more years? It's going to be like nothing. So it's not a flaw in the system, other than it doesn't take into account the risk associated with giving a player this much time in a contract and all that. It really does reflect how low that contract is, but you have to have confidence that you're willing to do that and obviously take on the risk, which this doesn't take into account. What else are we going to... so the other thing that I wanted to look at is you can kind of see, like, these are the normal numbers, and then we've got some that just blow things out of the water. So actually, Jared Goff is really on the high end of things, his contract. Then you got Lamar Jackson. Lamar Jackson's contract really is a staggeringly high contract. 14.14% on average over the duration of the contract. $185 million in practical guarantees. And look at this. Compared to Jared Goff, who actually has a really big contract, compared to Jared Goff, it's $15 million more, roughly, and he started it a year earlier. So it's 2023 money compared to 2024 money. This is huge. Dak Prescott, this one surprised me a lot. This one surprised nobody. Everybody guessed it when I asked it on social media. Dak Prescott's contract, this is in 2021. It's only a 4-year contract, which is a big part of that. But over 4 years, $126 million in guarantees. That's $15.39 million. This is a staggeringly high contract. And then, so if you look at this, like, so this is kind of your main, you're looking low end 25, high end 28, 29. this is kind of the general range, I would say, of most normal quarterbacks. You can see Daniel Jones, how low that is. And even these are, Derek Carr is low. Rodgers is kind of deflated because it had money on it already. So you can kind of just say 27 to 29 is sort of the real quarterback range. But if you look, the massive jump here to these two, and then even from these two, look how huge of a gap that is. We're talking this is double. This is almost double what you would consider reasonable. $230 million in practical guarantees. I think it was fully guaranteed, wasn't it? So it would be the same number. $230 million, 5 years in 2022 money. This is so unbelievably stupid. And not only because the guy sucks, but the thing that I love about this too is you can really see what are good and high and low and all that stuff contracts. So you can see Daniel Jones really didn't get that much. Trevor Lawrence, was actually lower than Daniel Jones when you think about it. And you look, well, that's ridiculous. It's 200 compared to 92. And there is an element of what is real money. Great for Daniel Jones as far as percentages and all that. But, you got Trevor Lawrence got $200 million that will be in his bank account at some point. And that there is, again, the time thing is kind of the variable here. Because time can be positive as well. It's not only just negative for the player and positive for the team. But when I kind of thought through that, I figured it'd be better to just have two metrics. You've got the pain metric, and then you have a time metric. Figure that out on your own, or maybe I will, because it's going to continue to drive me nuts until I get this perfected. But I'm perfectly comfortable with where it's at for right now. But still, this is kind of where you can see the normal range. And now, kind of similar to what I did last time, you look at it and say, okay, what makes sense for Jordan Love? So if we want to fall into this, let's say 25 to 29 range, we obviously don't want to play up here. Probably wouldn't be right to put him down here. And again, you're probably looking more in this range. Maybe it's lower because we know less, so we'll keep it here. But this is sort of what we're looking at. So, real quick, let's say they've got 5. So let's call this 6 years, because remember, we're going to give them the same 5-year contract. Let's just say hypothetically we give him a 5-year contract, but he has 1 year already on there. The year is obviously 2024, and then nope, that's not it. 2024, and then what else are we looking for here? So we want the 2024 cap hit to be around 11.48-ish. We could reverse engineer this, but I'm doing this live, so I'd rather not. Where's Trevor Lawrence? Oh, he's way down here. So around 10-ish%, I guess. So let's just start with 200 and see where that puts us. So that's about it. So 5 years, 200 in guarantees is roughly about what you're looking at. Now again, this is everybody's looking at what the heck does that mean? I don't know, because I know everybody wants.
Someone is at the back door.
Shut up! Everybody wants this number. They want the per year statistics or whatever. And remember, Trevor Lawrence did get 200 in practical guarantees, and it ended up being $55 million a year. But remember, that's with one additional year on it. It's a 5-year contract. I don't know, but anyways, this will be the way to kind of look at it. But just keep in mind, because we've also been saying, or I've been saying, one of the things to consider is maybe a shorter contract, because we don't really know. If I were to bring this down to 5 years, which would be a 4-year contract plus his one additional year, look at how much the percentage goes up. It goes up to 13.4%. And so you look at 13.4, we're getting closer to this range. So it's a real dangerous thing. Now, granted, you would probably just say, well, this, the number would come down or whatever, but then it becomes a really small contract. Maybe it becomes a fake contract where the guarantees are actually, lower, somewhere in this range, but we have a lot of fake funny money on there. I don't know. But anyways, I had fun. Building this guy out. I'm going to try to make this tool available to you if you want to play around with it, if you find it interesting, but that's kind of a down the road thing. Sorry, somebody was calling me. That's kind of a further down the road thing. Why don't we take a break? Stupid timing. We'll take a break. We'll come back, talk about some other stuff. We'll be right back.
Passion, drive, and patience. The formula for winning championships is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only, exclusions apply. You know, my son started collecting football cards. I had no idea what the heck I was doing, so I went out and bought him one of those binders you put all the cards in and all that kind of stuff. Turns out, card collecting has come a long way since when I was a kid, and that's what people did. Now, there is a new way to buy, sell, and trade cards. It's called Arena Club. Whether you're buying, selling, trading, or displaying, Arena Club is the all-in-one trading card platform that you have to sign up for. Over at arenaclub.com/packdaddy. We actually did a whole YouTube video about this. I would encourage you to check it out. It is a fantastic website. You can, as I said, you can buy, trade, sell, but also you can display all of your cards right there on the platform. It gives you all of the grading. They'll even grade your cards. Their grading combines AI as well as human grading to get the most accurate grading of all your cards. And right now, you can get 10% off your first purchase by going to arenaclub.com/packdaddy. That's arenaclub.com/packdaddy for 10% off your first purchase. What's going on, U.S. Cellular customers? I've got good news, so don't hit skip, at least not yet. I'm talking about their special customer event, Us Days. What is Us Days? It means exclusive offers just for their customers, just to say thanks, like $1,200 off any phone, plus $300 off any tablet. No, I didn't just misread that. They must really like you. Us Days at U.S. Cellular, exclusive offers just for you, just to say thank you. Right now, U.S. Cellular customers get $1,200 off any phone, plus $300 off any tablet. Terms apply.
This episode is brought to you by Shopify. Do you have a point of sale system you can trust, or is it a real POS? You need Shopify for retail. From accepting payments to managing inventory, Shopify POS has everything you need to sell in person. Go to shopify.com/system, all lowercase, to take your retail business to the next level today. That's shopify.com/system.
So I figured it'd be appropriate to bring this up next. This is from 12:50 a.m. The Fan. Former NFL GM Mike Tannenbaum suggests that Jordan Love should get a 10-year, $600 million contract from the Packers. Would you, as a Packers fan, be okay with that? Call this number. By the way, you can call 608-501-0718. Call into me and let me know what you think about that. I'm actually surprised this isn't lower than it is. So first of all, remember, this is the total $600 million, not the guarantees. But what I did is, if you look at, let's say, Trevor Lawrence's number, which is $200 million guaranteed out of $275 as a percentage, that would bring it to $436.3 for this $600 million deal. If we plug that into our handy-dandy calculator here, here's what that would equate to in terms of, you know, the pain of the contract. It's 10.8. That's actually relatively high. I didn't think it would be that high, but it is if you look at how that kind of runs out over time. And remember, these are all projected numbers. I don't know what these numbers are. Nobody actually knows what these numbers are yet. In fact, it's actually really hard to project now. It was easier before, but you can see with the new TV deals, if you look at it, I have a graph somewhere, it's kind of flat, you know, as far as going up, and as a percentage, the percentage is actually quite flat. But then there's a spike the last couple years, and it's also exacerbated by COVID. So because there was a dip and then a spike, and so you know, you'd have to look over several years to figure that out as far as what it's going to be. But anyways, this is the number that I've settled on for now as far as a percentage. I think it's like 8%, something a little over 8%. But so these are all projections, but you can see you don't even hit that, you know, 10% mark until 2029. I think if the Packers were to do a 10-year deal, it would have to be less than that. Again, I'm shocked that $60 million is what it is. And remember, I put in 11 years because he has one still on there. But, at the end of the day, this is a big chunk of money right here. You know what I mean? If you think about it, we're looking at 7-year contracts, $200 million. This is 11 years, $436 million. So it does make sense. But I don't know, man. Again, this is a bigger contract than I would have expected it to be. But at the same time, if you're going to put that much into a guy, it's got to be lower. I mean, remember, Pat Mahomes' deal, the percentage was ridiculous. In fact, what was Pat Mahomes' percentage? Let's do a Pat Mahomes deal for Jordan Love. So this is a 12-year thing, so it's pretty close. And he was at 4%. 4. So it would actually be closer to what? Like, it's going to be so stupid. I don't even want to put it in. Let's just start with 200. Yeah, I mean, you could say 200 in total guarantees. That's so dumb, though. Over 11 years. And then I don't want to dig into it right now because we're doing a recording and all that stuff. But it would be interesting to look at the structure of the contract and kind of see how that all pans out. But yeah, I don't know. That's a lot. You do 450 or whatever over 11 years. You could just as easily turn that into, do a 5-year deal. There's no reason to do this many years. I mean, and again, if you're going to do it, it should be at a massive discount. At least get it down to 8 or something. Something like that. $300 million in guarantees, which could be, a $400 million, which would be 40, which again is really low. I mean, Pat Mahomes was at 45. I don't know. What if you did 50 over 10 years? So that'd be $500 million. And then what, 350 in guarantees? Something like that? I don't know. I'm just playing with it or whatever. But that would be, if we're going to do a long-term contract, I want a lower number. Otherwise, what's the point? So that is my thought on this contract. You can let me know what you think, but it's such a high-risk thing. And again, if Jordan Love doesn't pan out, which I think he will, but if he doesn't pan out, or if there's an injury or whatever, we're on the hook for a lot of money. Even if it's $350 million in guarantees, that's $350 million that we're on the hook for, that we have to pay. So there's that. In other news, NFL kickoff rule loophole may need to be addressed as league issues response. So essentially, here is the concern. As of right now, as we know, there's this new kickoff rule. We're not going to go through how all that works, mostly because I can never remember how it's supposed to go. But the scenario that has been brought forth is, for example, on extra point kicks. So on extra point kicks, let's just say somebody is very aggressive and they come up and they slam into the kicker. Generally, what would happen is, because if you move the kick up, who gives a crap, right? It's an extra point kick, so you're not getting a first down or anything like that. You've presumably already scored your touchdown, so we're kicking an extra point. Moving it up doesn't really mean anything, again, presumably. And so the big penalty would be on the ensuing kickoff. You would move the kick up. The problem now is that I believe they cannot move the kick up. Secondary issue is, even if they decide to do it, it doesn't matter because it doesn't actually help anything, because the whole point is to kick it into that little area. But I believe you're not allowed to move because you can't change the setup. Like, this is what it is. You line up on this yard line, you line up here. It is what it is. It's set in stone. And so there's concern that people are going to be overly aggressive and possibly put kickers in danger because they're just going to be teeing off on them. Now, my thought is that there's an easy solution to this, and that is you do a post-kickoff penalty. You can impose a 15-yard penalty after the kickoff. So if you get the ball and you return the ball and you get to the 40-yard line, you kick it back 15 yards. 25-yard line. Simple enough. But I'm sure there's going to be a lot of issues like that. It's going to be one of the main things that teams are going to be looking to do is not only how do we perfect this, but how do we exploit this? Because there's going to be a ton of loopholes that people are not going to think about, and they're going to take advantage of it. And if this does not get addressed, you better believe we're going to send the house to go get the kicker. Because again, if you jump off sides, if you hit the kicker, do you really care? I wouldn't think so. Even if they move it up a little bit closer, yeah, but we rattled the kicker and he's got a little bit of a limp now, so I actually prefer him kicking with his lame leg 5 yards closer. He's basically, it's at some point it's going to get harder because we're so close, we got to kick it straight up. But as of right now, as far as I know, this has not been addressed, but it is one of the things. Again, there's probably going to be a lot of things that are going to have to be tweaked over the years, but at the end of the day, I still like the kickoff thing. I'm excited about it. I think the other thing that was brought up that I thought was interesting, it might have been Tannenbaum or whoever it was, but I heard him talking about it, and he did bring up a decent point, and that is that there's a lot of talk about the return game, and that there's going to be a ton of touchdowns. Like there's going to be so many more touchdowns. There is going to be a limit to how good it can be. Because at some point, they are just going to start kicking touchbacks. And you say, well, no, because the touchback now comes out to the whatever yard line. Like it's way further down the field. Right. But that's still going to cap it. They're still going to have to do a risk assessment and say, I'd rather have it be that than so at the end of the day, there is going to be a cap of how amazing this is going to be. And there is going to be a point at which it's too awesome. And there are too many returns. And they're just going to start kicking the ball straight out of the end zone, which is going to suck, especially since we got this whole setup here, and it looks so cool, and the kicker's so close now, and it's just going to be stupid because they're all just going to get kicked out of the end of the end zone. But anyways, thought I'd bring that up because freaking dead period. What else we got to talk? Next up, we got this article. This is heavy.com, which, as you know, it's pretty clickbaity, but that's all we got these days is clickbaity nonsense, unless I can come up with interesting projects. Kenny Clark expected to be pursued by Packers rival, analyst says. The reason I even bother to bring this up is because in reality, it's actually right. I couldn't care less who said it or didn't say it. I couldn't care if it's fake or 100% confirmed or whatever. It doesn't matter. Because if we just stop and think about it for a second, what if the Packers don't give Kenny his contract? Because I don't know that they will. What happened? This is, by the way, written by Tyler Brook. He's going to a rival. In the article here, it talks about the Minnesota Vikings. So we'll go through that. But in seriousness, you don't think the Bears would snipe him in a second? Their defensive tackles suck. Just like in Minnesota, by the way. They would snag him so fast. He's not getting out of the NFC North. That's just, first of all, that's all they do anyways, is poach Packers. But on top of that, both teams who have a massive history of constantly poaching Packers need defensive tackles. Anyways, Alec Lewis with The Athletic did a recent mailbag for Minnesota Vikings fans. When asked about who the Vikings might pursue in 2025 free agency, Lewis was quick to talk about Clark. Quote, 2 names, Kenny Clark and DJ Reed, Lewis wrote. The Vikings will likely peruse the market for defensive tackles and cornerbacks next year, and these 2 might be best available at their position. Now, I would say, as of right now, I'm a little bit higher than 50% the Packers are going to give him a contract. But I don't know. I mean, you could tell Brian Gutekunst was non-committal. And even if he was very committed to Kenny Clark, I mean, we saw what happened with Aaron Jones, right? Stuff happens. The number one priority is obviously getting Jordan Love taken care of first. I'm assuming that has to be first. That was kind of already alluded to. There might be a path to where if Kenny is willing to come down to this level, then we'll just do it. However, more than likely, they're going to wait and see what happens with the Jordan Love contract and how intensive that's going to be, and then from there try to decide if they're going to continue on with Kenny. And just the fact that it's even phrased that way, the fact that it's not just an automatic, really kind of tells you where they stand with Kenny Clark. Because if Kenny Clark was a young premier player, if he was Rashawn Gary, if he was Jair, it wouldn't be a question. Just would not be a question. But anyways, I thought that was funny because as soon as I saw that, I just thought, oh, for sure. And my immediate thought was Chicago Bears, and then I read the article and it said the Vikings. I'm like, yeah, actually that makes a ton of sense too. But just so we're all clear, because I think a lot of us are on point with feeling like Kenny's a good player. He's not a great player. I'd be fine keeping him. We're a better team with him than without him, in my opinion. But it wouldn't necessarily be a dagger in my heart if they decided to move on, especially if the price he's asking is relatively high. But just understand, if you're saying you're okay moving on from Kenny, also understand that you're saying you're okay with him being a Viking or a Bear, because that's exactly what's going to happen. Oh, those teams are ridiculous. I think we'll end with this. Here is, if you remember, the Chicago Bears mock-up, right? So let's take this in order. The Chicago Bears wanted to create a new stadium. They didn't like being in Chicago because Chicago was, I don't know, too expensive or whatever. They tried to work something out, and the mayor's like, no. And they're like, you know what? Screw you. So they play hardball. They're like, we're moving to Arlington Heights. And that became like a big deal. Chicago kind of held its ground, and then the Bears bought actual land in Arlington Heights, and they're like, we're going to build it right frickin' here. They own that land to this day. Apparently, this is according to this article from Sports Mockery, but it's just detail that I was not aware of. Apparently, the school districts, the teachers, the whatever, school boards, I don't know who's in charge of this, the teachers' unions, whatever, in Arlington Heights are like, hey, why don't we make the Bears pay higher taxes, higher property taxes, which is absolutely idiotic. If the Bears build a stadium in Arlington Heights, that is going to mean massive revenues for Arlington Heights. A lot of that money will go to the school districts. But no, the schools, ironically, are run by idiots. And so what you have are these people coming out and saying, hey, let's make them pay higher taxes. Screw those guys. So what do the Bears do? The Bears say, hey, Chicago, tell you what, let's work something out. Scared them out of Arlington Heights. So they go back to Chicago, they work out a deal, and they're like, all right, boom, we found a site. They mocked up this. I think this is beautiful. I really do. You know, I'll talk trash about the Bears all day. I understand the dome thing gets under people's craw, and it's like, oh, they're a bunch of wusses. And you're, to some degree, 100%. Not the wuss thing, but as far as, I mean, it is an advantage. I looked it up, even for the Bears, who don't have the greatest of records, they perform better when people come into their stadium when it's cold. But this is fantastic. I mean, this looks beautiful. The stadium looks amazing. They've got views that are incredible, like this right here, where this is kind of the new thing where it dips into the ground. So you're kind of like in the stands, but you're also like ground level. But the views like go out into the city, so you can look out of the stadium. It doesn't have the picture here, but you can see into the city. It looks fantastic. It really does. It's a beautiful thing. Well, apparently, there's been an additional update, and that is, despite all of this already being essentially confirmed, the governor of Illinois has now come out and said, hey, Bears, just so you know, you're not getting a dime of money for this. No funds from Illinois or Chicago, I believe, I don't know, will be funding this. We have bigger issues in this state, like food and housing. We're not giving you any money. So now the Bears are like, okay, yeah, dude, totally, completely understand that. Hey, Arlington Heights, can we negotiate this whole tax thing real quick? So the Bears have now come back to the table, despite having all these plans already figured out. They've gone back to Arlington Heights, have reopened negotiations. Are going to try to see if they can get them to negotiate this whole tax thing and bring it down. And apparently, as of right now, according to this, I believe, according to the Sports Mockery site, it's leaning toward more than likely they will end up in Arlington Heights. And the reason is there is a time constraint. And they're in the midst of negotiations, and there's time constraints. And the fact of the matter is they own the land in Arlington Heights. They don't own the land in Chicago. So I believe they'd essentially be renting the land that they'd be building on or something. I don't know how exactly that works. But it would be easier for Chicago to just build on the land that they own. And so as of right now, smart money is on the Bears actually ending up in Arlington Heights. What an absolute debacle. I mean, you can tell this is being run. I mean, this is the most incompetent sports organization in negotiation with one of the most incompetent states in the country, and they're trying to work this thing out. This is what it looks like. Hey, Chicago, we want to build a new stadium. Yeah? Well, we're going to say stupid stuff. Okay, well then we're going to go to Arlington Heights. Congratulations, Arlington Heights. You just won the freaking lottery. We are going to now turn you into a massive city. A massive city. Because we're building a stadium here. And the revenues that are going to pour in is going to be stupid. What do you think? I have an idea. Let's frickin' blow that up by saying we want you to pay even higher taxes than you would have already paid on top of the revenue that you already would have brought in. We just want to make you pay higher taxes because screw you. I don't know. And so then they're like, okay, go back to Chicago. And then the governor torpedoes that. And then they're back to Arlington Heights. I don't know. I'm enjoying watching this ping-ponging back and forth. You got the president or whatever the title of the Chicago Bears here is, doing his best to try to make something happen, and at the end of the day, this is just a disaster. The fact that you have time constraints on a thing, and you don't even have a place to start building. You don't have anything figured out. You're basically between two places that are acting like they don't want you. It's like, you can't even, I don't know. And you bought you bought the land in Arlington Heights, and then you abandoned Arlington Heights, and now you're going back to. I just build in Arlington Heights. You look like less of an idiot, but then you're out of Chicago, and you're not the Chicago Bears. You're the Arlington Heights Bears, which you're not going to actually change your name. But at the same time, I mean, it is what it is. It's just it's a freaking mess. It's an absolute mess. And I don't know who's the bigger idiots, the state of Illinois, the city of Chicago, the city of Arlington Heights, or the Chicago Bears. I have no idea, but they're stupid, and it's great. And I hope that continues because, I don't want them to be a good football team. I want them to be run poorly, especially if their quarterback ends up being really good, because if you have a premier quarterback, you got to be real crap to not have massive amounts of success for a long time. So anyways, I do have some other things, but considering we're a little low on content, we'll just go ahead and stop it here for today. Appreciate you guys hanging out. I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.